wrong music.
The music is wild. If I can hear myself, does that mean we're going? Are we live here? Hello. We're live?
We are on.
We're on. Welcome, everyone, to the Silicon Slope Show. We have an incredible guest today. Before we get to all of that, today's show is brought to you by LifeBrand. LifeBrand empowers all social media users to create a meaningful personal brand and reach their full potential through AI-powered cleaning technologies and nationally accredited social media courses. Go to lifebrand.life for more information. And thank you, LifeBrand, for sponsoring. Again, here we are. I'm Clint. Garrett.
Howdy ho.
Introduce our guest today.
Rasesh Patel, the president of Vivint.
This is a big guest for us.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
What's the latest at Vivint? Tell us the latest in consumer tech in Utah, Vivint, everything going on.
Oh, there's a ton going on. At Vivint, we're at the intersection of two pretty big trends, right? One is homes are getting smart. And I would say the homes are almost the last to follow. Our phones are smart. Our cars are smart. More and more devices are being connected in the home. And Vivint is at the heart of delivering a smart home experience to consumers. And then earlier this year, Vivint was acquired by NRG, which is the largest retail electric provider in the country, a large Fortune 200 energy company. And if you sort of see what's going on in energy, we're in the middle of a once in 100-year transition to the electrification of the economy, cars, really everything being electrified, and also a move to sustainable energy. And so we find ourselves at the crossroads of a really exciting time at Vivint.
Yeah, what do you think about the current state of energy in the world and in the country? Because obviously we are having the electric car revolution led by Elon, and it seems like solar is becoming less and less expensive. What do you what is the current state of energy?
Yeah, energy is going through, a once in a century transition. If you think about it, on the demand side of things, as you said, transportation is shifting to electric. California has made the declaration that by 2035, 100% of consumer vehicles will be electric. And it seemed like a crazy idea, and then the European Union followed suit. And other states have also followed suit. And so your home is becoming the gas station, right? It's a massive increase in demand. You think about just the number of devices that we have that consume power in our lives, even AI and everything we're seeing from that trend, cryptocurrencies, all of that is a massive draw on demand for power. And then at the same time, I think the world is sort of decarbonizing, and we are shifting from really a carbon-oriented, a supply strategy to using renewable resources. Solar, you mentioned, is growing. Wind is certainly playing, a major role, and so when you have the confluence of both of those things shifting, it makes for a really exciting time to be in the industry.
What are your thoughts on nuclear? Like, what role is that going to play in the future?
Nuclear is, it's interesting, and it regionally has. There are countries that have not backed away from nuclear. We, as a country, for a period of time, backed away. But nuclear is, I think an important element of the supply stack. Right. The challenge with a pure renewal based strategy is the sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. And so you need, a supply stack that can provide energy to meet demand. Yet you want to take advantage of renewables, and so nuclear, is something that I think is part of that portfolio.
Do you think it's a good thing for the government to mandate everything be electric, like all cars be electric by a certain time?
I don't know if mandate is necessarily the right strategy, or there are even people who question the incentives that are out there. There's obviously large tax credits, to incent the shift. But I definitely think that that's going to affect the timing and the pace to some extent. But absent that, there are a lot of advantages also to an electric vehicle. My family has two, EVs in our household, and it is a little revolutionary to not ever have to go to a gas pump and to always wake up every morning and have, a full charge, and just the driving experience of having instantaneous torque and cars that are super fast. There's a fun element to it as well. But look, there are places where the internal combustion engine is definitely the better technology. If you're traveling long distances, if you're trucks and you're hauling, a lot of gear, if you're towing. And so I think, each technology has, a purpose. And I think, the incentives are just accelerating the time frame of the transition, but there's certainly a transition that's going to take place.
How has this acquisition been for Vivint?
It's been great. I mean, we finished a really strong year. We had one of our strongest years in Vivint's history. And so we're excited about growing the customer base. We were able to grow the number of devices in the home, the engagement in the home. We finished with our strongest brand loyalty, which is just how long a customer stays with Vivint once they join. And then you take all of that momentum, and then you combine that with the fact that you've got this energy transition. And one of the biggest challenges our country faces is that demand is inelastic. In a sense, there are periods of time when our grid is stressed. And during those periods of times, 1 in 5 homes could be unoccupied, yet it's still drawing power. And there's a role that technology can play in really helping us make demand, a bit more flexible in a way that's still very comfortable for consumers. And I think Vivint has a really unique opportunity to bring the future forward on that front, combined with NRG's assets.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. What is the commitment to Utah with Vivint now that this company has bought it?
Well, soon after the acquisition, I think, NRG very quickly, declared that Utah is going to remain, the home for the smart home business unit. And so all of our core operating functions, remain based out of both Provo and Lehigh. And in the grand scheme of things, I actually think we're doing everything we were doing in smart home, and now we're also expanding the platform to really help with smart energy, and that's going to create even more opportunity for people in Utah. And so Vivint remains one of the largest employers, in the state. We're a healthy and growing business, and I think this only supercharges that.
Oh yeah, it's an incredible business.
You mentioned fun regarding EVs, and they are fun. But Vivint's kind of fun too, right? I'm not a huge techno nerd, but I do have Vivint at my house. And it started maybe half baked because we had a swamp cooler, right? So it wasn't connected to the air conditioner, but now everything is. And it's pretty fun and cool even for somebody like me to have that little control center and have a view of everything that's going on, right? And it's not 5 different devices and all of those things. Is there a skunk works at Vivint Smart Home, like a R&D, and do you find yourself wanting to go hang out with them at all?
That's a great question. It is a fun product. And what I tell people about the experience, much in the way I think you described it, is once somebody has Vivint, they can't live without it. Our average customer life is 9 years. And when you think about a discretionary product that you buy and you hang on to for a 9-year, period of time, it's extraordinary. And there's an element of fun to the brand, and there's an element of just convenience and bringing sort of a smart experience to your home. And so we have one of the best technology teams, I think, not just in the Valley, but I would argue I think we have one of the best technology platforms for smart home worldwide. And so I often find myself in our Lehigh Innovation Center. I spend 2 days of the week 2 to 3 days a week there. And it's fun to see the creative ideas that emerge and watch some of those ideas go from drawing board to walking into people's homes and seeing those ideas in action. And so one of the cool things we launched this year was a smart lighting product. And it's incredible because it's inviting when you come home. Your system, disarms and your lights turn on and it invites you into your home. We travel a lot as a family. And so when we're away on vacation, the lights randomly turn on to make it seem like somebody's home. And if
that's cool.
It is really cool. Yeah. And if there's a lingerer, somebody comes and hangs out on our driveway and is lingering, the Spotlight Pro will turn on externally. But if they don't leave, the inside lights will turn on in the house to make it seem like somebody's home and they woke up. And it's seeing ideas like that that go from
That's way
a
cool.
concept, to watching it live in people's homes is really exciting.
How much do you focus on what your competitors are doing? I mean, smart home has become like a category in and of itself, and you got the big tech companies all trying to get in there in some way. Amazon with Alexa and everything Alexa can do. Google obviously is engaged there. I don't know who owns Ring, or is its own standalone. I mean, like, how often do you pay attention to your competitors versus like we're going to innovate and create our own stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, our platform is unique in the sense that it is an open platform, and so we not only we have things that are a really important part of our experience, like our cameras are very differentiated, but we integrate with MyQ for garage door openers and QuickSet for locks and Alexa for voice control. And so it's a very open ecosystem. The magic of what Vivint does is how all those things work together in a magical way, right? To me, it's awesome when you come home you disarm the systems and the light turns on and the temperature adjusts to your preferential, comfort settings. And the fact that all those things happen without you having to take action is really the magical part of the experience. And so we're excited about this space because what we've seen is more and more devices are being connected in the home. And consumers don't want a dozen different apps with different passwords and having to remember to go to different places to do things. And so the fact that we can bring all of these experiences into a single app that makes everything work better together, I think is a really unique spot for Vivint. And the proof point is our average consumer uses and opens our app on average 16 times per day.
Whoa.
Right. And think about it. Think about your own usage patterns and how many apps you use more than 16 times in a day. It might be mail, calendar, your social media and messaging apps, but we have sort of earned the right to be on the home screen with our customers. And as more and more devices get connected, that engagement is growing. It's up 30% year on year. And we see that trend continuing. And so we really like our position.
What were you doing prior to joining Vivint?
So I've had the good fortune of being in the consumer services space for most of my career, and so the sort of the three exciting things that I've been a part of over the course of my career prior to Vivint. First was I joined a company called DirecTV soon after it had launched, and I was part of the team there that grew it from a startup. It was about the size of Vivint when I joined DirecTV. To a Fortune 100 business that had, more revenue than McDonald's.
Yeah, seriously.
And if you think about it, prior to DirecTV, there was analog cable, and you had 10 channels, you had a blurry standard definition picture, you had outages all the time, and here came along this technology that brought hundreds of channels, that brought NFL Sunday Ticket. So you could follow your favorite football team. No
you
matter
had
where
to
you
get
lived.
DirecTV in order to have NFL Sunday Ticket.
That's right.
It's genius.
It was incredible. Right? It changed the way Americans entertained themselves at home, and it brought this explosion in content creation because the capacity to distribute that content was there, and it was incredible. It was one of the most exciting times in my life to see something grow from planting seeds to being a brand and that has more revenue than McDonald's. After the DirecTV experience, the Rupert Murdoch, empire, which owns media assets all across the world, they were a primary investor in DirecTV, and they were starting India's first pay TV business. And so I had a chance to go to India as a part of a 12-person launch team to get Tata Sky off the ground. And that was extraordinary because you had a country with over 1 billion people that had access to 2 government-owned channels. And that's it. That was the content. That was the entertainment in the second most populated country in the world at the time. Now it's the most populated. And we went from that to 100 channels of international programming. And all of a sudden, India's consumers had access to, MTV and HBO and CNN and BBC. And it changed how people dress, how people
change the culture.
Live. It changed the culture. It literally,
that's fascinating,
which was incredible. And I was there for a little under 2 years, and we went from a 12-person launch team to over 13,000 people working at the company inside of a 24-month time frame. And today it's India's largest pay TV platform. And so that was sort of a second. It's probably the fastest thing I've ever been a part of. We were working in 3 shifts, 24 hours a day to get, satellites launched and to get that business off the ground. And then DirecTV was acquired by AT&T. And AT&T is, a Fortune 12 business, probably one of America's most storied brands.
Sure.
It's a brand that's been around for over 200 years. And I had a chance to run operations for all of AT&T's consumer businesses. I had a chance to run the video and the fiber business for AT&T. And my last role at AT&T was as a chief product officer for their B2B business. And so I've had a fun career. And so when I learned about Vivint, I sort of, I'm fueled by growth and taking something and hopefully making it a household name. And when I sort of learned more about who Vivint is, I sort of saw an opportunity for a company that I think one day will become a nationwide household name.
Yeah. What was Rupert like?
Oh, so I didn't directly work with Rupert.
What is that? What is that empire like? That's crazy.
It's. I mean,
have you seen Succession?
I have.
I think it's basically based off of that family, isn't it, or something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a dramatized instance. But
great.
Yeah, it is a
great series.
Oh, it's incredible. The last season just was.
It's out of control.
Was crazy, but yeah, look, they're an incredible. They obviously created Fox, which really became America's 4th network. And there was an explosion in sports content and media value for sports franchises coming out of that. But they own media assets literally across the globe. And so when I got deployed in India, I was really the only person from the U.S. The other 12 people were from UK, Scotland, Hong Kong, Foxtel in Australia. We called ourselves the United Nations, but it was fun for working, at a global sort of media empire, right? And seeing the inner workings of that company. Obviously, that was a joint venture between Star, which is the Murdoch entity, and Tata, which is like the GE of India. And so the boardroom, had a mixture of 2 very storied but very different, global organizations, and so it was a lot of fun.
Why do you think, like in the United States, when we think of Rupert Murdoch, we think of Fox News, it's just such a small part of the business, right? Like Fox is way bigger, and for some reason we think Fox News, or I may be wrong, but it seems like that's like kind of what he gets painted as. Do you think we'll ever have a mogul like that again, or what would that look like? What would somebody owning, like, how could he do that again today? Would it be like a bunch of YouTube channels? Like, I don't even know what it is. Like, it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, News Corp got its start really in the paper business.
Yeah,
and
owning papers in
that's right.
Great Britain first, or is it Australia?
It was Australia, then the UK, and then obviously Wall Street Journal is a property. They obviously have a interest in now a lot of television content and distribution. So B Sky B, which is like the DirecTV of the UK, is a Murdoch property, and so it is a pretty phenomenal thing to watch. But Clint, I'll tell you what. I mean, what's shifted is the entire media business. It was very local, and if you think about that, right, nobody would know what DirecTV is in India or in the UK, and we here aren't familiar with B Sky B or Foxtel or and with the shift that's happened in technology with platforms like Netflix and YouTube, these are now global distribution brands, and Netflix has taken things even one step further and has shifted the model from create in Hollywood and push out, to a model where they're creating content all over the world and distributing it, worldwide. And so for me, it was extraordinary to be in the industry during the time of, a once in a century change.
Yeah.
And, when there's change, there's opportunity, and you have to sort of, it doesn't come around all that often, and you have to be on your toes, and you have to be willing to invest and lean in and go after change. And I kind of find myself in the same situation now with Vivint and NRG, and it's a once in 100-year transition, and we're at the forefront of driving change into something that has been static for 100+ years, and it's exciting.
Yeah, that's incredible.
14 years at DirecTV and then 6 at AT&T. That's a little bit different, or it's not too common now in 2024 to stick around at places that long, it seems. I would assume now that you're in your role as president of Vivint Smart Home, you would want folks to stick around for 6 and 14 years and all of that. How do you guys think through that, and how do you guys try to encourage that?
It's a great question. Look, fundamentally, I think happy employees create happy customers, and Vivint is it's one of the most fun places I've worked in my career. There's an energy and there's a vibe to the organization. There's an innovative spirit. We run innovation weeks where people bring ideas, and some of those ideas get voted into real products. And so there's just a culture, I think, that's really innovative, that's vibrant, that is very unique to the company. And my pitch to people is, when you jump from thing to thing in a 1 to 2 year time frame, you never really get to see the impact of your work. And we at Vivint want people who are really motivated by driving impact in society, and you only get a chance to do that if you really stick around to make things, successful. And fortunately, we've got a team that has, that has a really, really high degree of engagement with the company, and so I feel really good about where we are from that standpoint. But if you're somebody who's really motivated by impact, then it's hard to jump every 6 to 12 months and really get fulfillment, because you really don't get a chance to see the output of your work.
That's a good point.
Yeah. $1 billion M&A activity doesn't happen every day. It does happen a decent amount, but I assume it was pretty fun to be a part of that whole process. I wish we could boil it down, but what are some fun parts that people might not realize about negotiations at that level? And what is something new you learned that you thought you knew?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, the acquisition or the opportunity came about sort of 6 or 7 months after I joined Vivint, and so it was a really interesting time because we were very excited about, I think, the work we were doing, and along came this opportunity. And as we learned more about NRG and learned more about the energy transition, and it made a lot of sense to us that this is a really powerful set of assets that really nobody has that could lead the forefront. And so first and foremost, it was really an exciting opportunity that transpired, and then it's it's like having a second job when you're going through a deal like that. The amount of due diligence that takes place. I tell people, when you're selling your house, right? You you have inspectors coming, and you have the prospective buyer coming multiple times, and due diligence, for a business like that is 100 times larger than that. And then lastly, we wanted to, until we knew this was going to proceed forward, there's, I think, probably 5 people in the company that knew about this deal and the diligence. And so the 5 of us were really burdened with, trying to support, the diligence and really understanding, the opportunity at a more granular level of detail before, we could open it up, and become public with the deal. So it was a crazy busy period, tail end of last year, and then you move into the stage of actually trying to get the deal done and moving it through the regulatory process, doing your integration planning, because you want to hit the ground running, and so all of that culminated this past March, when the deal closed. And really, we had a pretty extraordinary first year. NRG, as a company last year was, I think, finished 35th on the Fortune 500 list in terms of annual return. I think it was almost a 63% return. And so, this was a deal that very quickly went from, hey, this is an unusual combination, to people really starting to get it. And then the results, following shortly thereafter. So it's all a blur now.
Yeah.
But it was exciting. And when you look back on something like this, 5-10 years from now, it's really neat to say, hey, I was a part of making that happen.
Oh, for sure.
M&A is getting harder and harder too, isn't it? Like, I mean, you're seeing all these deals collapse, like Figma with Adobe, and these are tech deals, so they're like, but M&A is getting hard.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the environment last year, deal activity had sort of dried up, right?
Yeah.
Rising rates, and so it was an interesting time and backdrop. But really, for us, it was really more about the go forward opportunity, and to really create something special, and to have 1 + 1 equal much more than 2, and it's exciting to sort of be down that path.
How long do you think it'll take to, fully integrate the teams, find synergies, maybe trim the fat, all of the things that are involved in M&A? Is it on a roadmap somewhere with y'all? And who gets the task of kind of being where the buck stops as far as the implementation and the integration?
Yeah. So when the deal was announced, I think we outlined there's a $300 million of revenue synergies, and that is the 1 + 1 equaling 3 or a 4, and $100 million in cost synergies. Most of that is really taking 2 public companies and combining them into one. Right? You don't have to list a company twice. You don't need 2 different investor relations organizations, and so that's what was outlined. I think in our third quarter results, we shared that the first year target for that, for both on the cost and the revenue side, we finished ahead of plan for year 1, and we have really strong line of sight to achieving both the revenue and the cost synergies. And so it's really exciting to sort of have a high confidence plan in and around that. And now we've shifted our efforts to really that future forward equation, and really building the products and services for the future that allow us to do things like having residential demand response, or sometimes what's referred to as a virtual power plant within your home, and that's connecting the thermostat, rooftop solar, batteries, all of the energy management devices within your home, so that they work in concert to manage that supply demand equation with the grid. And so, I think the cost and the revenue synergies we're blocking and tackling, and the Vivint and the energy team know how to execute. So we have great line of sight to that. Now we're on to what I'll say even the more exciting chapter, which is kind of building that future experience in the product.
Yeah.
What is your take on Utah? I assumed you moved here for this job. What do you think about the growth of this state? How it is in terms of like, we think of it as like the greatest place ever, and it is. But how do you like rank it as like a tech and innovation hub? Compare it to other places. I mean, where you've traveled and been all over the world.
One of my colleagues said it best. He asked me if I ever imagined living in Utah, and I'm like, look, if I'm honest, that probably wasn't in the cards had it not been for the Vivint acquisition. He said a lot of people come to Utah that way, but once they're here, they never want to leave.
That's right.
And it is, that resonates with my wife Suchi and I. I mean, it's an extraordinary, state. I mean, we're surrounded by probably some of the most beautiful country, and places in the world. Last weekend, we were in Yellowstone snowmobiling through, and looking at bison, and it's just you can't do that.
Yeah.
When you live in Texas, and so we've really enjoyed. We love hiking, we love nature, and so that's been awesome on the personal front. And then professionally, Utah it's so unique because what I found is you've got an extraordinary talent pool that wants to live here, and so it really makes it easy for us to build a technology company, when you've got talent who wants to be in the area, and then you combine that with a strong work ethic. There's an entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, it's incredible. Like, there are kids in our neighborhood that have businesses, and they're 12 and 13 years old, and they're running their own business. And there's an enterprising aspect of Utah that I don't think exists anywhere. And so when you bring all those things together, you could see why there's a spirit of innovation. And we live in Traverse Mountain, right in Lehigh, and it feels like it's right in the heart of
it is.
a lot of the exciting, innovative activity, and so we're taking it all in. But I'm bullish on the state.
We're going to talk about some news here, but this kind of dovetails into it with the NHL. And we had at the session, we had NHL's commissioner, National Hockey League. We had Ryan Smith. You met Ryan yet?
I did. We have a suite right next to the Qualtrics suite.
Oh yeah, your guys' suite is incredible.
It is incredible.
I've managed to nudge my way in there once or twice. It's pretty incredible.
Oh, we'll have to have you back. But yeah, I think it was GQ magazine that said it's the most baller suite in the NBA.
It really is.
It's incredible. And so Ryan Smith and the Qualtrics organization's right next to us, and so I had a chance to chat with them, I think last week when the Lakers were in town, and it's incredible. His vision for what he's bringing to the state, and I think how he wants the state to be known externally is extraordinary.
Yeah, he's got a real passion for this state. You kind of have to if you're him, but like, man, he's going hard at it too. Bringing in an NHL team. It sounds like we're going to get a Major League Baseball team. It sounds like the Oakland A's, now Las Vegas A's, might play in Utah a couple seasons. Just kind of crazy.
No complaints from me.
Yeah, that's wild.
Well, if you had to choose one that would stay here forever, is it hockey or baseball? This is a Sophie's choice.
Of those two?
Yeah.
Baseball. For me, personally.
Yeah, same here. It's fun to go to a ballpark, and
there's nothing like the ballpark experience. It's the most American thing. It's just like, honestly, it's barely even a sport. It's like going to a bar and hanging out with your friends for 3 hours outdoors. That's what a baseball game is like.
Oh, it's a small slice of heaven.
Yeah, it's the best.
It is. But NHL hockey game is something to, oh boy.
Yeah, those are incredible.
Yeah.
Those are incredible too.
Yeah.
What else do we need to talk about, Garrett?
Along the line of billionaire sports owners, Live Golf and the PGA Tour have been locked in a death spiral for 2 years now. But a bunch of the big dogs from America, Arthur Blank, Steve Cohen, a bunch of hedge fund dudes, sports owners, are thinking about making a capital injection into the PGA Tour.
So they'd own it?
Not all of it. I don't know the actual deal terms. I doubt it's 51%. But it would be a nice capital infusion and a little bit of hedge against Live and their backers, the Saudis, because there have been some folks leaving the PGA Tour.
Well,
And-
yeah. Wouldn't you leave if somebody said, "Hey, here's $300 million to play golf"?
No, I am like Team Rory, Team Tiger. The Live is
I
kind of a
don't
joke.
believe that for a second.
They're doing just fine.
Tiger's a whole different story. Tiger's bigger than either one of these.
Yeah, and he's
Rory
on the board.
might be too, but yeah, everybody else. Let's get out of here. What are we talking about? $300 million to play golf?
True, but there is some sort of question of honor and like not abandoning the organization that got you to where you were.
What do you think of that? Just from a business perspective, like an M&A deal, and how crazy that, I mean, I'm sure you followed it a little bit. The PGA, Live, they actually came to some sort of an agreement that they were going to come together. It sounds like that may or may not still be happening. Who knows? But what do you think about that from a business perspective? And as somebody who was in DirecTV for so long and understands the value of live events for TV now, where do you think all that shakes out?
Yeah, it's, live is really the only thing that holds linear TV together.
Yeah.
And it's really the only thing. And it's incredible to see how large the NFL is as a part of that. I mean, the NFL, I think was, 10 of the top 10 viewed programs on live TV were
Yeah.
NFL games. And so, it is, I think, becoming a more scarce asset, for the kind of linear side of the business. What we refer to as like scripted content, movies, shows, all of that has clearly shifted to streaming, and it's a better customer experience to be able to watch it when you want, where you want, in many cases without commercials. But it's remarkable. I mean, I think there are multiple things going on with live sports. One is I think a lot of these franchises are trying to expand globally. Just like the scripted side of the platforms under Netflix and YouTube and Disney Plus, they're all global platforms now.
Yeah.
And it's I think there's an element of trying to attract international population. It's why some NFL games are being played in Europe. The NBA is becoming big in China. So I think that trend kind of continues, and so it's going to really make for a competitive space. I mean, this is a game of viewerships and advertising, right? And those two things really drive the value of the rights, and so it'll be interesting to see how much global traction some of these properties get. But you see that in soccer, and you followed Messi and just the whole infusion of viewership that's come from a global brand like him bringing a whole sport to life in a country like ours. And so I think you're going to see more and more of that.
Live events, particularly sports, just seem like it's critical to any sort of like ESPN, or like if they didn't have the rights to these things, who watches ESPN? Like that becomes those are becoming more and more valuable. Not that they weren't valuable, but and the NFL's a really interesting one because they're bigger than everybody times 20, right? Like I saw some stat like a game 7 of an NBA Finals, which is like a pretty. I think it may have been Warriors-Lakers or something, that 2016 one where LeBron came back and they won. Like a Thursday night NFL game dwarfed that.
Exactly.
Just like a Thursday night game.
It's extraordinary.
It's crazy how popular that is.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane. And we saw it. I mean, when I was with DirecTV, Sunday Ticket was really the first of its kind property. Until then, you could literally only watch the, more or less the local team or what was on the national network in your hometown. And so we've sort of seen, and we're a partner to the NFL in growing viewership and making, the product accessible in a whole different set of ways. And it's incredible to see the game evolve and to see, the viewership. But that those properties are going to be more and more scarce, I think, in the world where, really TV is now more or less live content, most of which is sports.
Yeah. How do you think the stream? Because even the streaming stuff is interesting because there's so many of them, and Disney doesn't seem to be doing as well as they once were. Or they grew rapidly, got a lot of users on there. Now it seems to be flatlining. It does seem like Netflix is just dominating. When you look at that, and given your experience with DirecTV, and even like, how would you approach this if you were DirecTV?
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting because Netflix obviously started and gained a lot of traction in growing their subscriber base.
Yeah.
And the street gave a very high valuation to Netflix based on subscriber growth. And that attracted everybody else to sort of get into the streaming game. And last year, part of what you saw in the market shift was really a sort of a rebalancing between growth and profitability. When interest rates rose, cost of capital rose, there was a big shift, and all of a sudden now expectation were for these streaming companies to be profitable businesses.
Yeah, money isn't free anymore.
Oh, and media is a expensive game to play. You're talking about tens of billions of dollars that you spend on producing content. And so it requires an extraordinary amount of scale to actually, generate returns for your shareholders. And so I think a lot of the media industry is sort of caught in the confluence of that. It's widely expected that there would be, some level of consolidation, before it's all over. And so it's interesting to watch, how that story plays forward. For Vivint, one of the things I love about our business is we have a business that where we generate technology, and our economics are much more like a technology business.
That's nice.
And which is nice because there's operating leverage as that business scales, right? And so we're also in a fragmented market, but we have scale, and so we're excited about how those two things come together for our future.
Yeah, that's incredible. Do you have another story you want us to talk about, Garrett?
Just for fun, real quick. The French are at it again. It's kind of their national pastime of blockading streets.
The French are at it again. He starts it.
La
wild.
manifestation. The farmers in France and other EU countries are not happy with cheap imports coming in, and it's making their businesses barely pencil out. So they're blocking all the streets.
Is
into
this the
Paris.
tractor thing?
Yep.
Like a bunch of tractors?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a lot of. This is going to be. How do you think about that? Not to like ask you political questions or get any trouble there, but from a macroeconomic and just world heading into 2024, we have an election here in the United States. The unrest, what we're seeing in the Middle East, the Russia-Ukraine thing is unsolved. How much do you think about outside world events versus internally, and like kind of how to position your company, because it does seem like leaders of companies have to think about this far more than they would have had to 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's a great point. The geopolitical risk is real, right? And if you think about like our products and services, components and technology comes from all over the world to bring that experience, to the consumer. And so we think about the resiliency of our supply chain, as well as the ability to get product across to
that's a big one,
to the
right?
US.
Yeah,
and
the manufacturing and
incredible. And COVID really was probably one of the biggest test cases for that, for our business. And I'm incredibly proud. I mean, we were able to manage through that in a very, very agile way without really disrupting the growth of our business. And if you saw through COVID, I mean, there were car companies that had tens of thousands of cars that couldn't be delivered because one component was missing. And it was a challenging time. And so to your point, Clint, the geopolitical risk that's there could be disruptive. And we think about the resiliency of our business and how to mitigate risk in and around that. I think you have to as a leader these days.
It's probably hard to be like, I have to focus on that. And it's super interesting. And what a crazy world we live in and a crazy time. And also I got to focus on like, here's what I got to do today.
Yeah, it is. Being a business leader, you deal with a lot. It's there's a lot of stakeholders. There's a lot of things, obviously, to make your company successful because it's a competitive market. And then you have, once in, every so often, you have external events that, could be a recession, could be a geopolitical event. It could be something like the pandemic. And you really have to navigate, and lead, I think, through those periods. And it's, if you want to build a brand that's going to be around for 200 years, you have to be systematic, and you got to think about all of these things and ensure that the company is positioned to be successful no matter what happens. And it's really, you don't realize the value of that until you're in the situation. And it's what's the Warren Buffett quote? It's only when the tide is low that you realize who's wearing shorts and who's not. And so that as a leader, I think you have to be disciplined in really being positioned to navigate through those types of events.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah,
Seriously,
thank you.
Hey,
come
thanks for
back
having me.
anytime.
This was great. I enjoyed meeting you both, and thanks for having me again.
Of course. Hey, and we'll sign off here. Make sure you check out LifeBrand, lifebrand.life. What's the little script thing that I read about them? It empowers all social media users to create a meaningful personal brand and reach their full potential through AI-powered cleaning technologies and nationally accredited social media courses. Check them out at lifebrand.life. We'll see everybody tomorrow. Hey, that was great, man.
Yeah, it was great. That was a fun chat.